and we'll be back. Into the fact where the victim is now the perpetrator and the perpetrator is now the victim. And that just drives me crazy. Today is October 15th. October 15th is significant for a number of reasons. One of the biggest reasons that it's significant, it is the date that the Black Panther Party was born. October 15th, 1966 is the birth of the Black Panther Party. As you know, Herman Wallace was released from prison. He was part of the Angola 3. Angola is a prison in New Orleans, Louisiana, that was a slave colony, and it was turned into a prison. And they held 3 members of the Angola 3, the longest being Herman Wallace in solitary for 41 years. They released him because he had cancer 3 days before he died. Herman Wallace was always free. They had his body enslaved, but he was always free. Today it is my honor to introduce 3 members. They're throwing a hip-hop what do you call it? A show. It's for the Sekou Odinga Defense Committee, and we're going to have some hip hop, some spoken word, and we have 2 stalwarts I know in the defense of black people, African people, and poor people, struggling people in general, and stalwarts in the defense and getting out the information about political prisoners and how long they have been in captivity, many of whom have been in captivity for very scurrilous charges and been tortured and harangued, and still they hang in there like the soldiers they are. With that, I am going to introduce this way. You can see my hand moving. That's your left to my right. Shaka Shakur. Get Shaka over here. You know, as I said, we're going. Okay, good. We have Shaka Shakur. We have Divine RBG, like red, black, and green, and we have the inimitable.
Get some other ways.
Yeah, I can't even say firecracker, the time bomb herself, Dekwi Siddique, and we're going to talk about an event that they have coming up on the 19th. We're going to talk about political prisoners. We're going to talk about what we can do to bring acknowledgement to the issue, bring encouragement to our political prisoners, and what we can do financially, spiritually, emotionally to bring some attention to this and do something good. Also, I have to stall a little bit because I got like people from the control room and they're running around like chickens with their heads cut off trying to plug people and whatnot, you know. Generally, I don't tell, but hey, why not? You know, you know, I'm not going to just sit here and babble alone. So with that, tighten up that shot. I'm light-skinned, and that's white-skinned. So Richie, if you got the opportunity, you can give me a little more color. And we're gonna kick this thing off. You can get a shot on good. That's a little more human. Let's start off with the young brother because you're the rapper in the group. You're the wave of the future. You know you gonna come the movie star and all that stuff. You know.
My name is Divine RBG. I work closely with likes of Dead Prez. I'm also a part of a group called The Day. And Dekwi had asked M1 Matula, which is one of the members of Dfns, to, I guess to get on the record, and they had called me and push things forward. It was an honor for me to be able to be a part of this project, being that the Sekou's committee are behind it as well. It's just not like a bunch of young brothers with political education trying to do it. It's likes of Dequee and other people that are pushing forward to make sure that the message is being sent out, that there are people behind enemy lines that have fighting for us to exist out here. And I feel like as an MC, I'm obligated to speak about these people, and through music give some sort of political education and some sort of awareness to people that need this, like Brother Sekou. So as soon as I got the track, I got on it, and it's hot. We having a CD party on the 19th at the National Black Theater, so we encouraging everybody to come out and just kind of like experience what we put together. And it's all just for the defense committee, to show the love that we have for Sekou Odinga and all that he done for us.
Brother Divine, it is so, and refreshing is not the word, but it is just so encouraging to hear someone like you, a young person who is so eloquent, so knowledgeable about the struggle that's going on, because a lot of young black people really do not understand, first of all, the competitive nature of the world that they have been thrust into. We got a 16-year-old girl took a bullet in the face, and she just missed the Nobel Peace Prize, and she's talking about education. So this is the level of commitment that young people all around the world are coming with. They're coming with this, and we have to meet that level of commitment. We have to be more aware, more knowledgeable. We have to work with elders who are not just like podium revolutionaries, but true revolutionaries, and interested in your development. So hearing you speak like this is just like really encouraging for me, because that's how we got to do it.
And I want to be able to be a vessel to communicate with other artists, so they don't feel obligated to, at least just how they advocate and they glorify certain people that are behind enemy lines. They should be glorifying and speaking about certain people like Sekou Odinga, and he deserves that. And I'm encouraging every rapper on any level to do your research. That's one of the songs on the CD is me and Matula, and we saying be Sekou, just like we was teaching the kids to be like Mike, or be like whoever you could think of, but be like Sekou as well. Have that morale, have that honor, have that loyalty and commitment to community, and that's what I respect.
And they had young people in the game. I mean, Sekou's son and Tupac was like the Outlaws and whatnot, so they was like coming at it, from a birthright almost, rite of passage, born into this thing.
I feel like it organically happened through hip-hop, and just not understand, like not just saying that they obligated because they the children's of, but just organically being like, we have this platform, now we got the opportunity to really, form up and really take on the responsibility that we really have. He's a Shakur.
Right. I'm going to turn it over to you, because I want you to tell us, for those who just woke up out of nowhere and have no idea, just tuned in randomly to this show, not like regular people, and who have no idea who Sekou Odinga is. I want you to give us some background into his struggle, the struggle of political prisoners in general, and give us some information about that. But before I do, I just want to let you know, brother, that just because you are the child of a revolutionary, a lot of times they are the most petulant people on the world. So don't think just because your father was this or that, because a lot of times they have that fire in them, and that fire of rebellion tends to start with the family. Generally, it takes a little while before they realize that Dad wasn't as stupid as I thought initially. Sister, revolutionary power movement, sister. Give us some.
Okay. Well, first I'd like to say thank you so much for having us here again. It's always a pleasure and an honor to be on your show. Second, I'd like to say to your audience, like, to not feel badly that they may not know about Sekou Odinga, the Black Panther Party, or U.S. held political prisoners or prisoners of war, because it's designed to be that way. Sekou was a member of, or is, because some people say once a Panther, always a Panther. But he was a member of the Black Panther Party who was forced to go underground, being targeted by COINTELPRO, the FBI's, and the U.S. government's program to crush the Black freedom struggle, the more radical elements of the Black freedom struggle. He escaped because they were looking for him. He was part of the Panther 21 case, and he resurfaced.
What is the Panther 21?
Panther 21 was, I think it was 1969. New York State went after, like, the leadership of the New York Black Panther Party to crush it. And they charged 21 people with crimes from getting ready to. This is when we had A&S and Gimbals. Those were the department stores at that time.
I remember it well.
But imagine Black people, the Black Panther Party, talking about blowing up stores that Black people are going to shop in during Easter time, right? When people are shopping. And so they blown up the Statue of Liberty, all these things. In any event, thankfully, the juries acquitted them, but, you know, Sekou was not here. He was in, he had gone to Algeria and set up the international section of the party. He stayed there for a number of years, traveling around the continent in South America, Cuba, the Caribbean. And then he said he needed to be back here because Black people were catching hell here. And like Harriet Tubman decided to go back, even though she had escaped. She said, my freedom means nothing if my brothers and sisters are not free. Sekou did the same thing. And he worked underground for all of those years until 1981 when he was captured, October 23rd, 1981. He was charged and convicted in the liberation of Assata Shakur, who is now living in further exile in Cuba with a $2 million reward on her head and a terrorist label, which we know is an attempt by the U.S. government to criminalize Black resistance. And people should know that Black resistance, we have been fighting since the kidnapping. Amistad, Sekou, Nat Turner, Dean Marvexy, Harriet Tubman. We have been resisting oppression and enslavement. So they do this because people don't know our history. People don't know the history of Black resistance. So Sekou was captured, he was beaten, he was tortured into a 3-month hospital stay, pushed into like a 2-year trial. He was convicted, sentenced to 40 years on the federal charge of liberating Assata, and then charged in New York State with 6 attempted murders of police officers. And so he is back in New York State. He did his federal time. He's back in New York State. And this work that we're doing now is on behalf of challenging New York State's custody of him, challenging them on their laws, which is what, you know, we resist in all kinds of ways, right? And so this is part of that resistance, challenging New York State's custody of him. And so besides all of that, I left out, I guess, first and foremost, he's my husband, right? So I left that part out.
If you're watching, she did it. I didn't know about me.
I can never leave that part out, right? So, but he is one of 20 members of the Black Panther Party who have, from 1969 to today, 2013, done more than 800 years in prison collectively. And so it is particularly because they dared to struggle and dared to win. They dared to create a 10-point platform and program of action and service to the Black community. And people don't know that the fact that their children could eat lunch, breakfast in school, the fact that there are free health clinics and pantries and all of these services came out of the Black Panther Party's 10-point platform and program.
Right.
And because of the free breakfast program, J. Edgar Hoover said that the Black Panther Party was the greatest threat to the internal security of the U.S. because you're meeting people's basic needs, something that the government is not doing and refuses to do. Continuing then and now, there's just as much need in 1966 with the founding of the Black Panther Party as it is now. They are just as relevant. Today, they're using police bullets, but in 1966 they were throwing people off the roofs. So it's the same thing, and prior to 1966 they were using the rope.
They're throwing some people off the roofs today.
Yeah, exactly. So the Black Panther Party, Sekou Odinga and Abdul Majid and Brother Divine mentioned Mutulu Shakur and Robert Seth Hayes and all of these, Russell Maroon Schultz and all of these people, Herman Bell, they carry on a legacy of black resistance that did not start with the Black Panther Party. It started, as I said, on those slave ships. And then when we talk about armed self-defense, then we're talking about Robert Williams and Negroes Without Guns. We're talking about Rosa Parks and her family and her grandfathers, which when you read her life story, they talk about on the kitchen table as a child, there were guns on her grandfather's table because the black men in that community had to patrol and protect black people against white terror and white violence. Right? So armed self-defense, which is how they criminalize us because they say that we're violent, which I subscribe to the same theory that Malcolm does. It is not violent. If I were to walk past you on the street and go to hit you, your first response is what? Defense. Self. Right? Self-defense. So we are responding to the historic level of violence that has been imposed upon black people, which we have prevailed. We have not only survived, but we have prevailed because we're still here and we're still continuing to resist in all the ways that we do. So we have to be clear when we talk about the Black Panther Party to put Sekou Odinga and all of our captured freedom fighters in the context, the historical context of the black freedom struggle that began with the first kidnapping in 1619.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, a little known fact, after King Cotton, when they revoked all rights and privileges to freed blacks, black people had to arm themselves and patrol their areas for blacks who had escaped and come north and were freed in the north because they would be shanghaied and taken back and re-enslaved even though they were free men, you know. So it's also interesting that in a time when we have 3 times the amount of when white people have 3 times the amount of guns that they have people in the United States of America, they find ways to kill us for candy bars and, you know, kick down the bathroom door and murder a child in the Bronx.
Right.
You know, so it is very, very interesting, to say the least, that in a time of so much violence in this community, this United States of America community, that the violence is still primarily directed upon us.
That's right.
For the most part, but all people who have any of the African diaspora in them at all, you know, generally,
right.
You know.
Well, I think that it's important that we even contextualize violence. Violence is not just the physical violence. There's nothing more violent than the violence of poverty. You don't have a place to live. You don't have a child, a 6-year-old is hungry. A 6-year-old has to sleep in a shelter or in a car, or children are living in the tunnels of the train station or on the streets and park benches. That is violence, right? The violence of miseducation, the violence of lack of health care, which is all the things that the Black Panther Party dealt with. Health care, housing. That violence is all of those things that poor people have to suffer with and endure in this country. So I like to extend the conversation beyond the thing of physical violence, because people often go there. But violence is poverty. Violence is racism. Violence is the classism, right? It's the homophobia. It's all of these things, but particularly the violence of white supremacy, the ideology of white supremacy, and how that has a particular impact on the lives of black people trying to live in these United States of America.
Right, and that takes it beyond class. That takes it into caste system.
That's right.
You know,
apartheid.
European. Right. It really does.
Right.
Brother Sekou, now you have, and let me say this, because we mentioned the Black Panther Party establishing the food programs and the medical programs, and that got them labeled by the FBI as the most dangerous organization around. And it's not just because they were doing what the white man wouldn't do. There is a different vibe eating at your family's table than it is eating at Woolworths. You know, and when you are in your own community, extending a hand to your own brothers and sisters, there is a different family vibe that comes about by doing this, and a different thing that forms unity. Now, you have carried on in that tradition with the People's Survival Program, you know. As a matter of fact, you are one busy young black man, you know. What is the Maroon Society, first of all, and then segue into the People's Survival Program, and let us know.
Maroon Society is actually, it's a hip-hop group, but it's also a collective of artists in the spirit of the Maroons. And you got to understand, historically, Maroons were Africans who were just, I'm not going to be a slave. At any cost, I'm not going to be a slave. So we started out saying, you know, with the music, hip-hop itself gets put in an apartment, but hip-hop is a movement, it's not a music. You know, hip-hop comes from the slave ships, it came from before we was on those slave ships, it came from the fields of down south, and it's still here. You know, if you go to Jamaica, early reggae was hip-hop. You know, you look at funk and all that. So we say, you know, this is a music of resistance. So we're going to have this place, this island of freedom, and we called it Maroon Society. So me and Brother Divine Allah, we are like the front faces. But, you know, Brother Divine RBG, Dead Prez, all of us, you know, all of us are in that Maroon Society. Because we have to have that attitude in order to do what we do. You know, we know that we are dealing with a system that doesn't want to push anything related to our people's survival.
Right.
You know, and I really don't expect them to do that. So in the spirit of the Maroons, we do it ourselves. You know, and that's what gives birth to Maroon Society.
Right. It's interesting because hip-hop globally is far more political in nature. And the strangest phenomenon is that hip-hop globally, especially in countries where you would not expect them to be so politically aware, so smart, in a lot of instances they are far more politically aware, far more well-educated and knowledgeable than a lot of us of any generation are right here in the good old USA with 6,000 cable channels and internet and smartphones and smartphone watches and you know. So knowledge is not just something that has to be made available. You have to be taught to seek it out. You have to be taught who you are. One of the underlying factors that I come across when I speak to you, and we talk about the Panthers, the Maroon Society, when we talk about political prisoners, the underlying theme is the fact that you have a group of people who just refuse to be slaves.
That's right.
You know, how did you get involved in? Because you down with some heavy folks. I didn't get this heavy till I was old. I was like, wow, where y'all been?
I think that just well, my father was incarcerated. You know, pretty much most of part of my younger life, and I just started to, I got, you know, cool with some political prisoner sons, and we became, you know, through and Stick, we became close friends. And then we just was just like hip hop. When you making music, you really not really thinking about a lot of stuff, but at the same time, we was the young folk that were looking for information for us to empower community when we write rhymes. We wasn't a group of brothers that you could come with lies and fabricating stories. It was about putting stories together that will be timeless with information that's timeless. And I think that that's just what hip hop does. The hip hop culture is how we just became cool, and then it just so happened that we went and we got a record deal. Dead Prez got a record deal at Loud, and then we knew and understood. I feel like M and Stick knew and understood their obligation of pushing forward what our political position was in hip hop, and made a blueprint with the album Let's Get Free. And that's why if you listen to that album, it's a real blueprint of what this is about. And I feel after that, I just been obligated and look for different forms. I'm Grammy nominated with an Afro-Cuban band called Yerba Buena, and just being able to speak from an Afro-Latino side of things, and speaking of people that have been enslaved in that part, region of the world, and just representing Afro culture in all its totality is what's, you know, enabled me to be in this position, you know. So we obligated because we were informed. There was people like Dayquee building with young brothers. I got a whole community of people, Rosa Clemente, Dream Hampton. It's just people that we were cool, but we were just doing things in the world that would make an impact.
Right.
You know, and I think that that's what the spirit of youth. I think a lot of the time when the youth got certain tools and they're able to experiment with them and have the freedom to be them, they'll bring back the fruits that we need. You know, they just need the basics.
Exactly.
Basic information.
See, this is why I love these brothers, right?
Yeah, I can dig it. I can dig it.
That's right.
It's funny. Things tend to travel in cycles, and a lot of the things that hip hop went through, black music in general went through. That black music evolved into a place of consciousness and relevance and forward movement, and then it was like stepped on, and they brought a whole lot of stuff in. That's kind of the same development that hip-hop went through, because hip-hop had reached a point where it was very, very, very a part of the culture, very knowledgeable, smart, inspirational, forward-looking, and then it sort of got oppressed, depressed, suppressed, you know, and you heard a lot of stuff that was like strange to listen to, and the very word hip hop became synonymous with the oppressive force that it had become, and now it seems to be like fighting through the oppression and getting back to where it should have been the whole time. So, you know, you have knowledge, you have forward motion, you have resistance, and if you are truly a part of us, you resist the oppression, and you keep coming forward and whatnot, you know.
I think that's a great point, you know, that we do know that oppression breeds resistance.
Yes.
And this is where understanding the historical context, because in the United States, whenever they have saw there's been resistance amongst the people, they have come in to destroy that. And so they did it with heroin, just like they did to the Chinese people with the opium wars, kill the revolution with the opium. So they put in the heroin here, then it was crack, then it was the hip hop that they do, you know, taken from the people. And when people don't know, then, you know, we don't know what we don't know.
Right.
Right? And so it's like what Dr. John Henry Clark says, we got to know where we were, where we are, and where we're going. So that when these brothers talk about where we are now, where we're going, it's because they're talking about where we were. And they're talking about taking it back to where we were, so that the government cannot, the corporate media, the powers that be, because this is a slaveocracy. And they did it with our black labor. And so now they do it with everything else, right? So now they take our art and they use it to poison us, and then our children go to their schools, so they don't know, like Dead Prez did that song, They Schools. My students used to love that song. The boys would say, Dad, they said everything that I have ever felt, right? And so they don't know, but I know from being in there, if you give our children something, like Brother Divine said, they will hold on. We don't know, most of us don't know who we are. As Sekou said, we don't know that. We got to go back to the cultural part of being African from the diaspora, all the places that we come from, and understand that we are more connected. The only thing that separates us is where those slave ships left us off. Right? That's the only thing that separates us. Right? But we don't know that because we're listening to the state power structure to tell us who we are, instead of we doing what Brother Shaka said, defining for ourselves. And that's what this is about.
Definitely. And even with hip-hop, like, we got to be clear, it's the difference between hip-hop and rap. You know, hip-hop is our culture. Rap was created in a boardroom somewhere. And, you know, in Maroon Society, we make it clear, like, part of this is not just making music. It's learning your culture, understanding the culture, and we understand that when we say rap, that's reactionary African propaganda. You know, we don't want no parts of that. Straight up, we don't want no parts of that. So we got to be clear when we're explaining it. We have to separate in our conversation and say, well, hip-hop is a culture. It's not even a music. It's a culture. Hip-hop is what I dress. Hip-hop is what I eat. You know, hip-hop is everything. It's a whole culture. And when we get to that point, then you can't step on an entire culture. You can step on my music. You can step on a few things, but my entire culture. So the PSP is hip-hop. the freedom schools that we create, that's hip-hop. You know, hip-hop is what, I'm from Webster Avenue. The first time I became educated about Stephen Biko was on the wall of a school because it was written in graffiti, Biko lives. I didn't even know who Biko was.
Right.
You know, so the graffiti artists, all this is a part of our culture. And once we embrace it as a culture, that's the ultimate weapon. Like I tell Daquay all the time, the movement needs a soundtrack. And we are the people to put that soundtrack to this movement. You know, we are the way we are because the soundtrack is gearing us that way. So it's time for a new soundtrack.
Correct. I remember Khaled, I think it was at the second Main Youth March, was talking about whatever you become, whatever you decide to be a revolutionary, that thing.
That's right.
You know, if you're going to be a doctor, be a revolutionary doctor. If you're going to be a movie maker, be a revolutionary movie maker. And he had everybody cracking up because he was talking about you know, the scenarios that go into the movies, how we're always the sidekick, and you know, you got the Schwarzenegger white man saving the world with just one machine gun and big muscles, you know. And he was saying that if you're going to be a black movie maker, you know, you be the man with the machine gun and the, you know.
That's right.
They tell you, oh, it's only a movie. It's only a movie. You know. But it's very, very true that when you look at the education system, and the education system is so much more now than it ever was, and we, in a lot of ways, we had a superior education because they kind of slept on us. We were like the fly on the wall, so they underestimated our potential and our potentiality, and they weren't as suppressive of information as they are now. But not only do they not teach you who you are, they take liberties with facts that are just, I mean, they just make stuff up.
We go right for it.
You know, Egypt ain't Africa, it's the Middle East. You know, whatever the hell that means, I have no idea what that, you know.
But,
and just consider, Barack Obama a couple of months ago went to South Africa to talk about the black South Africans' freedom fight and to recognize Nelson Mandela as a political prisoner who sacrificed all these things for unjust political imprisonment for 27 years while ignoring the political prisoners that are right here.
Walked past the jail.
That's right. He walked past 2.5 million people in prison to go stand in the cell, right? So you're criminalizing black resistance here and calling it terrorists, which, by the way, ANC and Nelson Mandela was considered a terrorist before the fall of the apartheid regime or the legal, because it's still apartheid, right? All their problems are not solved, right? But just the hypocrisy. So that's like taking liberties because you're going thousands of miles away to talk about the black freedom struggle there while ignoring and dissing and dismissing the black freedom struggle here, which if it was not for the black freedom struggle, no matter what issues we have with Obama, and a lot of people, and a lot of us have plenty of cause to have issues, he would not be the first black president of these United States if it was not for the black freedom struggle, whether it was the civil rights movement or the black power movement. And to ignore and to dismiss the black power movement, which made demands. It didn't go asking for stuff. They made demands. No, you're going to do this. You're going to create black studies programs. You're going to create Chicano studies, women's studies, Asian studies. You're going to create these things. And you're going to have, there's no reason why you don't feed children. There's no reason why everybody don't have access to health care. And so the hypocrisy of this country.
Is it hypocrisy, or is it, because slavery is not a physical condition. Chaining the body does not in and of itself create a slave. Controlling your economic situation does not in and of itself create a slave. I mean, you can be chained and be free and defiant, you know, and never acquiesce to slavery. And you can be doing exceptionally well economically. You can live in a big mansion, you know, and be totally enslaved. What in a lot of ways, how do we break the bondage of slavery? And I mean mental slavery, like Bob Marley said, mental slavery, which is what it is, it's a state of mind. You know, how do we do that? Because unlike a lot of people, I think that, you know, some folks is just slaves. You know,
I just believe
You
it.
know,
It
I
starts
don't even know what to do.
it starts with the foods that you eat. It starts with the information that you study. It's how you decipher information when you study it. It's how you are able to, the things that you know, mentally put in your body and physically put in your body for your growth and development. I think that revolution starts in self. I think true change starts in self and in community, meaning that each one teach one, each one. I remember coming up and I would learn stuff from my neighbor. I would learn stuff from other people in my community, and it would hold just as much weight as if I learned it from my parents, right? And my parents would enforce that whole idea as well. Now, that just proves us that you couldn't go in community and be giving out information to children or live in a certain lifestyle that our community would accept. And I think that once we know our obligation as community is what our protocol is, what we should be eating, how we should be addressing ourselves, what we should be, you know, doing with one another as far as interacting, I think that we got the ability to make true change and see it too. I think that people want us to believe that we'll never see change in our time, but it comes with us, you know, morally respecting ourselves.
And also, you know, you gotta, like the brother said, you know, being someone that walked part of my life with Dr. Khalid in that time, one of the things we understand is that if the white man ain't going to treat you right, he ain't going to teach you right.
Right.
I think we tend to forget that. It's not their job. They're not in the business of creating free people. That's just not their job.
Right.
You know, and that's our fault. We think that the enemy is supposed to free us. We got to free ourselves.
Yeah, what is it with that? Well, because we, I mean, I grew up in a time before a lot of stuff, and I never thought about the white man. You know, no, I mean, really. I'm growing up in Harlem. Everybody around me is black. I got to worry about my mother and my friends' mothers looking out the window and whatnot. You know, there was never any conscious thought of white people being superior to me, and it wasn't like a defiant thing. It just never occurred to me, you know, that anybody or anything was any better than we were, you know. Or more deserving of respect. How did this? I mean, is it that we have become isolated and not as familiar as we were? What is
I think it's the
contributing to
reverse.
this?
It's the reverse because, like, Marcus Garvey, the great Honorable Marcus Garvey, grew up in Jamaica, an all-black place.
Right.
You know, next door to a white girl who he was his friend. They played together, all that. He went to school, came home, and went to go see his friend and overheard her father telling her, I don't want to see you with that nigga no more. You see? Just because we're in a black concentration camp don't mean that we're not in a concentration camp. That's one of the most eloquent traps of this enemy. They'll place us in the illusion of flag freedom when we're not free. So what's happening now is this enemy is just outright with it. You know, we should have never got to the point where we wasn't thinking about him.
Right.
Because how did you get here? He brought you here, you know, and so we have to understand that.
I have been remiss. I invite people watching to call in. I have 3 dynamic guests, and as always, I am as big a fan as anybody out there, so I tend to monopolize the conversation because I'm like, huh? But we have someone on the phone, and we're going to take a phone call. You can put the call through if you want to, and you can address your question to any of the people on the panel, Brother Shakur, Brother Divine, or Sister DeQuee. Yeah, if you guys could turn it up, otherwise I'm gonna start asking questions again. Okay, we hear you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I have a comment for mostly everybody on the panel. I'd just like to ask, what do you think about the black holiday slavery? And just some comments about, you know, black holiday slavery. That's what I call it.
Black
you know
holiday slavery?
You know, Christmas, the whole New Year and all.
Columbus Day?
Yeah, yeah, that one too, and the Valentine's and all of that other stuff, and you know, so I just like some comments on, you know, because you know the issues surrounding that, so just I would like some comments on, you know, what we can do to better, ourselves in dealing with these holiday slavery things going on.
Well, the first thing we could do, sister, is teach the truth. That's first and foremost. We have to set up our own schools
Thank
and
you.
teach
Thank
that
you.
a holiday means a holy day. And so as far as we're concerned, it's a hell of a day. So we pay no attention to that. Some things we just have to just cut out of our system, and that's a major part of it. There is no Christmas. Tell your children that you bought the gifts.
Right.
And then tell your children we have a Kwanzaa. There is no Thanksgiving. We have Jiname to celebrate during that time. And then start to institute it in our homes. Not just tell them, but like the brother said, community. You got to be the one to say to your child, no, this is what's happening. This is where we're going to do this, and make that a reality.
Right. And also understanding that all of those so-called holidays are related to the capitalism, right? It's about making money, right? I'm not Christian, but I know that Christmas Day is not related to the birth of Jesus. Right? So when Shaka says about teaching too, if you want to celebrate your family, you don't have to do it on the days that they say to do.
That's right.
You can do it any other day. I don't celebrate any of those days, right? Because when you know better, like Maya Angelou says, when you know better, you do better. And I understand that I love my husband. I don't need them to tell me that today is Valentine's Day. If I want to celebrate February 14th, I'll celebrate it as Frederick Douglass's birthday,
That's right.
not as Valentine's Day. Right? I can celebrate my black love any day. There's 365 days of the year. So, and the same thing, if we want to be grateful for what we have, I'm not going to celebrate the slaughter
That's right.
of indigenous people, because that's what they're celebrating. They gathered all those indigenous people up together
Slaughtered.
after the harvest, and they slaughtered them.
Yeah.
To be
And-
exact, they put them in a church and burned it.
Yeah.
They sat in front of it and ate the food that they got while these brothers and sisters were burning in the
Right.
church.
So you cannot, if you know this, you cannot. So I don't participate. I mean, people in my family do it. I just stay home.
Yeah,
Right?
that's
And
part of
so,
resistance.
right,
You
it's
gotta
that's part of the
resist.
resistance. But I don't judge other people. If that's what they do, people have to do what, and over time, because life is a journey.
That's right.
Was there a time that I did those things? Absolutely. But now I know better.
And suggestion,
Right.
I know a lot of people out there, Halloween, so-called, is coming up, and they're going to be pressured to buy their children costumes. So if you're not ready to take the leap into Africanism, then you know what? Dress your child as Huey P. Newton and send them to school. Dress your child as Malcolm X or Harriet Tubman and send them to school like that.
That's right.
They ain't gonna be no goblins and ghouls. Let them be freedom fighters.
I love that idea.
That's what we do.
No, we didn't even have no outfits. You dressed up like a witch. Your mama would put her old clothes on you. I'm a witch. All y'all witches.
Yeah, we're gonna be freedom fighters this year.
And before you call in, about white Jesus, I just want you to know that I have already heard it. What difference does it make what color Jesus is? So you don't have to throw that in. Young brother, it's been a minute before we heard your voice, and you are so eloquent. Now you talked about being up for a Grammy for an Afro-Cuban band.
Yeah.
Columbus Day, Afro-Cuban. That's a whole bunch of contradiction all in one sentence. There. How do you feel about this?
Well, the whole Columbus Day thing, I think now in 2014, I think that more people understand that indigenous people were murdered, but there's no action.
What
behind
city
that.
did Columbus land in? Was it Long Island? Staten
I think it was
Island?
long. I try not to even remember.
I don't really even care. I know
Just
that
wondering.
he has destroyed our community in ways that we have still not recovered from, and this disease, those are mental stuff. But as far as I just feel like people are more aware to talk about that indigenous people were murdered on that day, and I think it's beautiful for us to be able to build on it if we have information and to create dialogue. I think that information and just conversation is what people need now. Conversations like this, I think that people should challenge things that they've been taught and question it. It don't stop with Santa Claus. It don't stop there. It's so many other people that all the things that they're lying about. So I think it's just important for us to just question everything.
I would just like to say, as an African person, a new African born here in this country, it is highly offensive and insulting to me to have Columbus Day shoved down my throat, to have George Washington's Day shoved down my throat, to have these schools and all these holidays and all these things named after people who are responsible for genocide, right? Imagine how Jewish people would feel if a statue of Hitler stood, it became Hitler Circle.
Hitler Day.
Or Hitler Day. Or they had schools named after those people who
Auschwitz
were
and all that.
who were soldiers in Hitler's army. So why is it okay, and why should we even have to submit to that and be called
Rommel's birthday.
Yes, exactly.
I think we have another call, and we're going to take the call. And I also want to ask your comments about the fact that in the year 2013, what you think about stop and frisk, and that so many millions of black people are in prison that they aren't even sure the numbers anymore. They just like pull number 3 million, 4 million, 2 million, 10 million. I don't even know anymore. But we have a call. Let's take the call. And caller, if you're there, you're on.
Yes, hello?
Hey, how you doing, caller?
All right, Brother Nate, once again, award-winning show.
I got peeps, brother.
I just want to let the panel know that had it not been for y'all, man, y'all just resuscitated my soul and whatnot. Because, you know, sometimes when I look at what's going on in the community, I'm just like, I might as well just lay down and die sometimes. You know what I'm saying? But now I found newfound home, so to speak. And, you know, like, when I think of the Panthers and whatnot, you know, it's a beautiful thing because unlike what the white man would like to portray as an angry black man with a gun, you know, these were like angry black men with guns and intellect. You know what I'm saying? And they weren't scared of the guns, and they weren't scared of the black man. They were scared of that black man's intellect and whatnot. And, you know, it's good to see that this movement being resuscitated. And, you know, like I deal with a lot of young folk and whatnot, and they're all under the impression that because of Martin Luther King and it's a dream and we're sitting on buses with white folks and we can sit anywhere on the bus and so on and so forth, there's this impression that everything prior, you know, after 1965 or so and whatnot, you know, is ancient history and whatnot, and that the war is over, so to speak, and that, you know, anybody talking this black power thing is basically a dinosaur or a relic and whatnot. And then I'm looking at, you know, these white folks protesting with Confederate flags in front of the White House and things like that. How they're taking away voting rights and stuff like that. And I'm like, how does anybody get the impression that the war is over when they're actually taking back the so-called gains that we've already acquired? And I'm just curious, how can I impress upon the young folk that the struggle is still continues?
What are y'all two cents?
Let me start with action. Every Tuesday night, tonight, matter of fact, at the Asada Shakur Center in City College, the People's Survival Program have a public political education class. It starts at 7 o'clock in room 3201, and that's 137th and Amsterdam Avenue. Come through, get the information, and spread it. You know, we'll help you build the similar situation where you live. I mean, that's the best thing we could do. And this Friday, we have Serve the People Day on 125th, between 124th and 125th in Lexington. Come on out and feed the people, help the people. You know, that's the best way to show the people that this war is still going on, when they come out and see it for themselves.
Yeah, I think we got a couple of more calls. I want to take the calls. But tell them to look at numbers. We used to be pretty good at numbers. And look at the numbers. And the numbers that we had to list in, the numbers that no white person would want to be caught dead with. We have the most people in prison, the most people in foster care, the most people unemployed, the most people broke. So look at the numbers. If you're satisfied with those numbers, then fine, we have arrived. But let's take a call. I don't want to monopolize this because I could just get on this for a while. Caller, if you're there.
Yes, I'd just like to hear a few comments made about the Klan holding the government hostage over
my government. Okay.
You know, this is really the Klan. All right?
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, the Klan holding your government.
The Klan?
Yeah.
I don't know nothing about the Klan at all.
Well, what do you know about your government? Because they might be kind of the same thing.
I know I never ever ran from the Ku Klux Klan, and I shouldn't have to run from a black man. So, that's what I know about the Klan. But other than that, I really, I mean,
Hello?
Well, I think that
I'll be right with you, caller. We run out of time. I wanted to answer the question, and then I'll come right to you.
I think that what is important to understand is the founding of these United States.
That's right.
Built on, as Shirley Graham Du Bois said, right? The wealth of this nation is built on the genocide of one group of people and the enslavement of another. And everything that these people do, no matter what the face looks like, is designed with those two purposes in mind: genocide and enslavement.
Right.
And from chattel slavery to prison slavery.
Right.
And so everything from fugitive slave laws to stop and frisk. Right? To every single thing that they do is designed in that way. To low-skilled, low-paying jobs to sharecropping.
That's right.
It's all the same thing. And so when we know history, which is what the caller said, one of the callers said about the intellect, intelligence, right? The most, as Stephen Biko said, the most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. So you take the mind of the oppressed people out of the hands of the oppressor, they won't be oppressed anymore, because they will be resisting that with every single fiber of their body. And that's why Sekou Odinga and those 20 members of the Black Panther Party and all of the U.S. held political prisoners are in prison. The white, the Puerto Rican, the indigenous, because they said this is not going to happen on my watch, because I know better.
Caller, if you're still there, you can chime in with a question or a comment.
Hello, Brother Nat.
Hey, how you doing, brother?
All right. Hello to your panel as well. I see the brother at the far end of the
Shaka
table.
Shakur,
Yes, I see
Divine
that brother all the
RBG,
time.
and Sister Dequise, well, sit down.
That's all
I
right.
was so good.
No, but I see the brother all the time, and that's what I call him a real soldier. And people like him are the ones that the youth need to be looking up to, not to the little Waynes and the Drakes, but they need to look up to brothers like this that's doing the real work in the street, that's motivating and mobilizing our people. But one of the things that I wanted to say is that we need to really be careful as the black community in terms of what some of these films are portraying. And I'm thinking particular about the movie The Butler. A lot of people went to see that and they liked it, but we need to watch out for people like Lee Daniels. And I'm sorry, I know some people are going to think this kind of harsh, but he's a black devil because he puts these hidden messages in his movies. The way that the Black Panthers was portrayed in that movie, it was basically crystallized into a bunch of aimless youth who had no direction whatsoever, who were just angry. The way that they portrayed his girlfriend sitting at the table, disrespectful, belching and whatnot, it was just sickening that anyone with a real revolutionary spirit is trivialized and made to seem like they're a bunch of fools and idiots. And I mean, we just need to be careful about what these people are putting on film. Those are the real traitors in our community.
Yes,
so I'm
sir.
going to leave it at that. I know you're almost out of time. Great show. You hit a home run this time, Nat. Peace.
Oh, thank you.
Can I just touch on that?
Yeah, of course.
What we're going to do, brother, and he's right about that. Again, Maroon Society, one of our main things is not hip-hop is everything. So like this event, we are going to turn the Sekou, we're going to turn the Sekou event into a documentary. We have to take these cameras, phones, and all this other stuff, document your own story, tell our own stories, put it on YouTube yourself. Like your show, for instance. This is a prime example.
And don't just make something that you are making to appease a white audience, because they did everything. As a matter of fact, not only did they take a story that they know white folks love, and they've always loved these stories. The butler, the help, going with the band, all they did was steal a picture, but almost there, give me that.
Yeah, exactly.
They always love this stuff. They always, but that wasn't even enough. They had to turn the guy's wife into some sort of whore. I don't know what that was about. That's not. I mean,
That's
you
not
just
us.
couldn't leave it with him being the butler and not getting a raise in 100 years. You had to like, well,
Destroy the whole family.
The pathology of
but
black
they've
people. I didn't
always
see
loved
it.
this show. I don't watch that kind of stuff. I don't do
didn't
no
see them.
butler
I didn't
movies.
see
I
them.
just don't do butler movies.
I didn't get to see it.
So, but we would like to, right, like you said, make sure
less
that,
than a minute. So let them know about the CD.
Right.
Release
less than
party.
a minute to say anything you want to
right.
say.
So it's Freedom Ain't Free because freedom ain't free. And it is a CD release party and live performance event. You'll see Shaka and Brother Divine there. You'll see a whole host of other artists that are going to be performing.
Where is it? What
it's at
time
the
is it?
National Black Theater on 5th Avenue and 125th Street. It's from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. and your donation will get you the CD as well. And just be able to connect. And we have family and community. That's what we are, family and community. And that's what this event is about, to remind people that freedom ain't free. And we have a responsibility, as Brother Divine says, to carry it on and push it on to free all of our political prisoners.
I want to thank you for joining in. Again, that's October 19th. That's at the National Black Theater, 125th Street and
5th Avenue.
5th Avenue. What time?
5 p.m. to 9 p.m.
5 p.m. 5 p.m. Get there. You're going to have a great time. You're going to participate in something worthwhile for our community. Peace. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, brother. All right.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
He's looking at you.
What? It's over. Yeah, we're coming back. Okay.
Two black, two strong.
We've been lied to. We've been deceived. But I hold no grudges. I hold no grudges. So take your time. Now you got a minute.
Okay. So I feel like I've said a lot. Unless you brothers have something else you want to say.
I just feel like, as far as Sekou Odinga is concerned, I'm just honored to be a part of this project. Me being from the Bronx, with the work that Sekou did in the Bronx, and I've encouraged again everybody to come out. And if you don't have no PE, no political education, if you just come by and you gonna learn something, we are totally approachable.
That's right.
We are not no radical, ignorant, a lot of, and since I'm speaking for hip hop, a lot of the music that we got right now that's out every day is very, very ignorant. And I think that it's our time now to show how knowledgeable we are and how smart.
Now we're wrapping up, and just to let y'all know that it ain't just hip hop that ain't ignorant. Old Bruce like me ain't ignorant. I got 3 cameras. That camera says 529.50. That one says 257.21, and that one says 257. And I'm looking at that one. So we'll see you next week. It wasn't me. It wasn't the pilot who did it. They put me in a bum plane. I'll see you next week.
National Black Theater.
Right, National Black Theater, October 19th. That's 125th Street and 5th Avenue, and it starts at 5 o'clock. Be there. You will enjoy yourself. Have the time of your life. Listen to some dynamite music, and help us become who we were meant to be, destined to be.
Indeed.
Peace. We're out.